Welcome to Premium Cashflow Real Estate Investing Podcast with Sakar Kauli. During this program, you will hear guest experts sharing their experiences, best practices, and market insights. We discuss investing in multifamily apartment complexes and how a busy professional can passively invest hassle-free in various opportunities. Your host, Sakar Kauli, owns millions of dollars of assets and has done thousands of value-add projects over 20 years now. So listen in for insights. Here's your host, Sakar Kauli.
Welcome to another edition of Premium Cashflow Podcast. Today, I have the pleasure of welcoming Alina Trigub with SAMO Financial. She is one of the great personalities into the industry. She is a speaker in many conferences. I have, obviously met her on several occasions, and she's just a great person to interact with. She's been part of many more deals, and she's a pretty active investor as well. So welcome to the show, Alina. I appreciate you taking time today.
Wow, Sakar, thank you. That was a very nice introduction. I really appreciate it. It's my pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. So, Alina, explain us your background and kind of how you came into commercial real estate in such a big way.
Sure, absolutely. So hello, everyone. My name is Alina Trigub. I started my journey many years ago when I decided to become an accountant. But after I got my degree and tried working as a tax accountant in both public and private world, I made a decision that accounting was not for me. I needed to leave the field. And after leaving the field, I went into software development world, where I work to this day. And I really enjoyed what I was doing, and the roles evolved. They were very different, but they mainly evolved around being the liaison between the business and technology and being able to connect these two worlds, help them to communicate with each other.
Sure.
And while working in IT, because I had that tax background, taxes have always been on my mind. And as my husband and I were growing in our careers, I was always thinking as to what are the ways to minimize taxes, because,
Sure.
With growing career, growing income, obviously the taxes are growing as well.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And real estate has been on my mind because of that, because it's one of the best ways to lower your taxes. And I haven't taken action for a very long time until about 7 years ago, when I finally decided I have to take action, and I need to start researching and start investing in real estate. And that's what I did. And after looking for properties locally here in New Jersey and realizing that the numbers just don't make sense for someone with an accounting degree, I decided to go out of state. Mm-hmm. And while researching out of state strategies, the strategy that I came about was syndications. Mm-hmm. It seemed viable. It seemed like a good choice. I started researching operators, looking at the deals that were available, and then finally took action and invested. And honestly, after investing in one, I almost right after that invested in another, and then there was the trickle down effect. I invested in many more.
Sure.
And after doing that for several years and realizing not only the benefits of doing it completely passively, but also the tax component of it, and the building wealth component, I decided that I would like to bring that to other people and help them build wealth passively.
Sure.
And out of that idea of starting my own company, SAMO Financial, was born. So about 2.5 years ago, I started my own company with that sole purpose of helping other people diversify their portfolio, invest in real estate, and build that wealth completely passively without any interruption to their day-to-day life, whether it's a hobby or personal life or business or demanding job. And I've been doing that ever since, and really enjoying helping others, building my own portfolio, and investing in real estate. And that's how you and I met, Sakar,
Absolutely,
through one of these
absolutely. And it's such incredible, Elena, that, so much goes into, kind of just the analysis of commercial real estate, understanding what different submarkets are doing, how to kind of evaluate the deals, the operators, and kind of more importantly, that passing on all of that knowledge to our friends and family and different fellow passive investors and things like that. So it's great to network. It's a small world, as we say, right? You kind of understand what's happening and things like that. So with that, Elena, how do you kind of for different deals that you do, how do you evaluate those deals, and what's important, like whether it's the sponsors, the submarket? Could you maybe kind of throw your sort of thoughts around how you go around this?
Absolutely. And actually, Sakar, all of the things you mentioned are important. Typically, I start with the sponsor. I look at the operator, and in order for us to work together, we need to have pre-existing relationships. That's just
Sure.
my personal way of doing things.
Mm-hmm.
I try to establish and build the relationship before it's needed, or long time in advance, to just see whether it's the person that I would want to work with. It's someone who values align with my values, and the overall strategy and approach to business and real estate investing in general are also aligned with my values. And the same was happening when I was investing as an equity partner myself.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking at the operators and kind of interviewing them, talking to them, just to get a feel not only of how they perform as the operators, but also what are they about as a person. Because if I'm not aligned with them as a person, then I wouldn't be comfortable to invest with them.
Sure.
Typically, these investments last for a long time, and even 5, 7, or 10 years. And I want to make sure that I will feel confident that I want to put my money with that person for this long. So it always starts with the person. And once you get to know the operator, and you feel, yes, this is the person I want to invest with, then you look at the market. What are the markets that this operator invests in? Do you believe in this market? Is that the market you want to be on, or all these markets are the ones you want to be? Maybe they invest in 5 markets and you agree with them on a 4, but one of the markets is you don't feel confident about. So just keep the investments in that particular market, but concentrate on others. And last but not least is obviously looking at the deal.
Sure.
And when it comes to looking at the deal, I always tell people that there are 2 components. There is a quantitative and there is a qualitative component. And don't look at them separately. Don't look at them as silo. Always look at them together.
Sure.
Because whatever you see as a picture of the quantitative, whether it's cash on cash, IRR, annual return, and so forth, you also need to look at the other side. What is the strategy that the operator wants to implement? How is it going to be applied? And is the strategy viable? Can you apply this strategy and still achieve these numbers? Do the 2 match? Is there a match between the 2? Does it make sense? And if it does make sense, if in fact you do believe that it's a viable investment, then move forward and invest. And obviously, just like I said at the beginning, that I was looking for a way to diversify out of Wall Street. Once you diversify in, let's say, multifamily, it is my personal belief that it also makes sense to continue diversifying your portfolio. Let's say you invested in several apartment buildings. Maybe it's now time to invest in mobile home parks or something else. But, keeping a portfolio well balanced, well diversified, helps you to mitigate your risk. Obviously, no one can avoid the risk. Risks are always there. But if you can find the ways to mitigate your risks, to bring your portfolio to a level where market fluctuations, economy fluctuation will not impact it tremendously, we'll keep it balanced, then, all the power to you. You're only doing yourself a favor by making sure that you're on the right path to build your wealth.
Sure, sure. Totally agree with you. The whole analogy around, like what exactly who's the operator, are they investing in growing markets? And your point is well taken also about, the qualitative and the quantitative side of things, that what sort of strategy the operator is implementing, and does it make sense? Like, are their rents, whatever they're projecting, are achievable and things like that. So it's those are all well taken, Alina, and I educate the same. In terms of like speaking to investors, Alina, what different things you do to maybe speak with your passive investors? Like, how do you kind of bring them up to speed? Because obviously, like, somebody new probably doesn't know what exactly is commercial real estate, or how to invest, what it goes. I mean, could you maybe throw your sort of take on how you kind of
Sure.
go about it?
Absolutely, Sakar. So one of the things that helps me to communicate with my investors is actually staying in touch with them and making sure that we connect at least a couple of times a year. And that
Mhm.
connection could be either over the phone or email or text. There are
Mhm.
so many ways to connect.
Mhm.
Obviously, right now we're all using Zoom more than
Sure.
anything else.
Mhm.
But in general, find a way to connect with your investor. And by the way,
Mhm.
sometimes it could be as simple as, let's say someone is into reading a lot of books and you came across this interesting book that you just finished reading. Send them a suggestion or send them that book. Say, hey, I read that book. I think you're going to enjoy it. That's as simple as that. It's, number one, you're communicating with them. Number two, your gesture of showing that you care about them. You're
Sure.
sending
Mhm.
them the book that you think they'll enjoy. It's amazing. And it goes a long way by doing that simple gesture. Also, when I get the questions from investors, whether it's a newer ones or existing, the long-term investors, I try, when I see that the questions that keep coming up multiple times, I try to cover them through my blogs.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
if it's something that people are asking all the time, for instance, I used to get a lot of questions about different quantitative components, like I said,
Mhm.
IRR, cash on cash, and so forth. So I wrote an article that covers all of those metrics. How do they work, what they represent, how to look at them, how to evaluate them, and edit examples to that.
Mhm.
And I try to do that with other questions. Whenever questions come up from investors, I try to cover it, because you know what? If it came once, it most likely will come again at some point
Sure,
later.
sure. Mhm.
And what can be a better way to explain it by putting all your thoughts on a paper and sharing it with other people, and this way educating them indirectly through that. And also podcasts like this, like you and I talking when
Mhm.
you're
Mhm.
interviewing folks, through questions and answer sessions, investors also get educated. If someone is completely new to real estate or syndications, I also suggest some books to read and some podcasts like yours to
Mhm.
listen, because it's a great way to educate yourself. If, let's say, you're exercising or maybe driving to work, you can hop in and listen to a podcast or
Sure.
listen to a couple of books, and that always helps to constantly educating yourself and increasing your knowledge.
Sure, sure. And also, Alina, then, for passive investors, what do you advise them? Like, if someone says that, hey, perhaps, what, I like this, I want to do this actively, and you kind of realize that, hey, you know what, you just don't have the kind of the, all the resources and all the mindset to kind of do this thing actively, but, you want to suggest them that, hey, perhaps passively, and, teaming up with more resources is more important. How do you kind of piece about, encouraging someone to invest passively? How do you kind of convince them about it?
Sure, a great question, Sakar. As a matter of fact, I was thinking about that too, because when I started in real estate, it was also very challenging for me to determine what kind of investing I want to do.
Sure.
And I kept jumping from thinking about flips to buy and hold to liens to, many, many things.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to help other folks to avoid that gold rush syndrome, going in multiple
Sure.
directions, and being active versus passive is also part of that
Sure.
bouquet. I decided to put together a training, which I did, and it's been published recently on Udemy. And the training is simply to help people determine what type of real estate investing niche choose for themselves.
Sure.
So if anyone is interested, I can send you the link to my training.
Sure.
It's not going to tell you, hey, you must do flipping or you must be a passive investor. But what it will do, it will guide you through a number of steps that will help you answer questions to yourself as to what are your best qualities and what is your bandwidth and
Sure.
what is it that you can do. And it will help you narrow that focus and determine which way actually is the right one for you.
Awesome. I like that, and we'll definitely link that training in our show notes, Alina. So definitely viewers and listeners of the podcast can take advantage of it. Now, different markets and different deals that you have done, Alina. Could you maybe perhaps describe what were your experiences, like perhaps the value add or even the kind of the guarantee of monthly payments and things like that? Could you maybe share some of your experiences from your prior deals?
Sure. So first of all, the preferred returns are never guaranteed. Nothing is guaranteed.
Sure.
And that's the first thing that I always tell my investors, and I hope other real estate investors, operators, syndicators, whatever people do within a team, they always share nothing is guaranteed and it's a risky investment, period.
Sure.
You have to start with that. Second of all, the way I explain it, the preferred return gives you a guarantee in the sense that if there is a payment, if there is extra cash that's coming from this investment, then you as a passive investor will be paid out first before the general partner paid out. And that gives investor a good feeling because they know that this general partner really cares about them. They're going to pay them first, and they'll make sure that they took care of their passive investors before paying themselves.
Sure.
Which helps a lot. And your second question, I'm sorry, I forgot what the
No, I was just talking about, definitely, you hit the nail on the head. Was definitely all about, the returns, the value adds and things like that. And it can also dovetail into like, perhaps when you're looking at the deals, are you perhaps, looking at things like, hey, is there a tangible value add into some of these deals and things like that? So could you maybe also describe like some of the value add strategies that you have seen implemented from the operators and things like that?
Sure. Yeah, the value adds differ, and they could be as little as maybe adding a dog park or replacing a roof in a building, or maybe adding covered parking in the areas where there's a lot of sun or a lot of snow, to doing significant renovations, which include completely redoing bathrooms on all the units, or completely redoing the entirety of each unit, or maybe 80% of all units.
Sure.
And what typically happens is, if the project is very involved, if there is, the renovation of each and every unit has to happen, depending on the number of doors. Let's say we're talking 100 doors, all the units need to be renovated. This project is obviously going to last from a year or two. It's going to take some time. And the expectations of investors should be such that probably at the beginning, they shouldn't be expecting any dividends, or maybe very, very low dividend, because most of the investment has to go into the renovating of the units. And while the units are renovated, obviously there will be a higher vacancy. And even though you're an investor, but you have to put yourself in the place of an operator. So you're renovating units. While the units are renovated, nobody is living there. So that means that your vacancy is going to be higher. So expect higher vacancy, and expect some more money going into renovation. And obviously the funds have been allocated for that. But also understand that real estate is a business. So just like in any business, first you have to inject capital before something happens. So that injection helps to make the renovations happen, make the units look nicer, bring new higher paying tenants, increase the rents, and this way obviously gradually increase the dividend component for the
Absolutely,
investor.
absolutely. Those are all great components, and you rightfully pointed out that as we are starting the deals, the amount of cash or the capital that gets injected for improvements is significant. That can perhaps initially impact your returns, but as you correctly pointed out, as it stabilizes, you are kind of seeing the increase of returns and normalizing to something projected that we do. Now, Alina, speaking of passive investors, we are always talking to various people, interacting with them and things like that. What are some of the steps you do to kind of bring them on board from just like an acquaintance, and perhaps educating them and then bringing them as a passive investor in your network? What are some of the tips that you can share that you do that we all can learn from?
Absolutely. Well, it all starts out with a conversation. I actually start out with an application. I ask them to complete a short application
Mhm,
that gives me a general high-level overview of
mhm,
what the person is about, why
mhm,
they're reaching out, or why do they want to invest and join our club and invest with us. Once they complete an application, we have a phone conversation, of course,
mhm,
and that helps me determine, as you said further, is this person really interested in being a passive investor, or they're just interested in syndications and want to become active general partners sometime
mhm,
down the road.
mhm.
And after that conversation, if they're truly interested in being completely passive, don't want to invest, then I send them additional reading material if this is completely new. Because some folks come from a real estate background, for
Sure.
instance, like yourself, Sakar, and then they don't require additional education. But folks that are completely new to real estate, I would send them some articles of mine, probably a few books recommendations, and even podcast recommendations to make sure that they educate themselves and they understand what they're doing. Because what I don't want to happen is I don't want them to see the offering and then be at a complete loss as to how to read the offering memorandum, how to understand the private placement memorandum, and how to decide whether to invest or not.
Sure.
And that's why I try to take the time to point those things out to them, send them a few samples so they get familiarized with offering memorandums.
Sure.
Obviously, not the legal document, so not supposed to share. But so they can get a handle of what it will look like, and they can decide what kind of expectations they have from the investment,
Sure.
what type of assets they want to invest, and
Mhm.
look at the markets and also read some books and come up with the questions. This way, if they do their homework ahead of time, they have the questions that they can ask them. We can have that conversation beforehand, and then when we have an opportunity to bring them on, by that point they're educated and they know how to read the offering memorandum, and they're ready to read it and make a decision.
Sure, sure. Those are absolutely great points, Elena. Thank you for sharing that. Also, Elena, in terms of all the different advice that you have received so far, I mean, you have networked with a lot of folks. I mean, you have a great background now. What are some of the good pieces of advice that you have received so far that kind of helps you daily in your business?
In general, it's not just about real estate, it's also about personal development.
Sure.
And when I realized that, I started educating myself, because when you go to work, you have that W2 mentality, you kind of narrow-minded and you don't see anything else that's going on around you.
Sure.
But when you start working on your mindset, you open up a lot of other doors, and you start seeing these opportunities that you've never seen before, that
Sure.
probably existed and were in
Hmm.
front of you, but just because you were that narrow focused, you had no idea it existed. So I always encourage folks, when educating yourself, whether it's to become a real estate investor, build a business, or start a new venture, also work on your mindset. Read books by Tony Robbins, read Hal Elrod Miracle Morning, and the list can go on in terms of
Sure.
those
Sure.
mindset books. But work on your mindset so that you can open up yourself to many other opportunities. And what's also important is to start networking with people that are also go-getters, high achievers, people that are looking to better for themselves and for the community. Because
Sure.
you are typically, as Jim Rohn said, you are typically a combination of the 5 folks around you. So if you surround yourself with open-minded, business-driven people that want to add value to others, then it will help you grow, and you will be able to help these and other folks grow as well. So I think that's very, very critical in terms of building a business, become an investor, or doing something for yourself. If you want to do yourself a favor, then work on your mindset.
Priceless advice. Couldn't agree more. I mean, work on your mind. That's how, everything, that's your central nucleus that everything starts off. And, grow your network. Make sure you're mixing with open-minded folks who are doing bigger and better things. Couldn't agree more. Priceless advice. Share with the listeners, Alina, how they can find you and learn more about your company.
Absolutely. They can find me through my website, which is samofinancial.com, or on LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook.
Incredible. Thank you for coming on, Alina. Folks like you, we always love to have you. For anyone listening to the podcast, premiumcashflow.com is our website. So thank you for listening. We always have guests, like Alina, who are experts in various things. We also have, various articles and stats always up on the website for all the latest things that are happening. And, if you're interested in investing, you can always, reach out to us via website, and we can learn about your goals and what you're looking to do. So thank you for coming on, Alina. I look forward to, speaking with you at another episode as well. So
Sakhar,
thanks for
it's my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me. Great to be here.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Premium Cashflow Real Estate Investing Podcast. Please join us at premiumcashflow.com to sign up for weekly updates, research articles, and more. We will see you again for another great interview with an expert guest.